important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this Degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, to where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and D-gentlemen of all ages. Welcome back to another Degen Roundtable Sunday special. This is episode number 58. I am Zenith, and I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, Will Stevenson. What's going on, man?
As soon as you asked me that, my headset started working again. I was like, son of a bitch, like halfway through the intro, it cut out, and I was hearing it through my phone, and I was like, God bless America. But I'm doing great, bro. We just had a fucking fantastic weekend over here in New York. I'm still in New Jersey right now, hanging out with an amigo of mine, and it's been a killer weekend, bro. I've not experienced so much like highs and lows and craziness and just like meeting cool people and doing great things all in one spot in such a long time. So it was absolutely phenomenal. I loved the Richard Hart trial. I loved just meeting everyone, and fuck, bro, feels good. It's good to be back on stream, though. Good to see your face. Good to see the folks at home. Yeah, man, I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
I am feeling pretty good, although I'll be honest, I got back and I was pretty tired. I think it was just all the travel and then all the late nights that we had. And I'm not going to lie, the place that I booked was not the best, and neither was the bed, but I'm very much glad to be back in my own Tempur-Pedic bed, my memory foam pillow, specifically for my terrible old man back. And I was like, oh, this is the life right here.
Yeah, you're striking old age of, what are you, 30 now?
Right, sir. We're now the big 3-0. Crazy to think, but that's what we are. True. Alrighty, with that being said, for the folks at home, if you do not know what we are talking about at all, Will and I just got back from the Pulse Chain Conference in New York City, which was centered around the Richard Hart oral arguments hearing at the federal courthouse in Brooklyn, New York City. That's right, we had the battle in Brooklyn. We had the showdown above the Hudson. And overall, I got to say, I don't think they could have chosen a better venue for the place. It was like perfectly cinematic, aside from the part that we couldn't bring our phones to take pictures. But you get to this federal courthouse, big, massive glass building outside of a park. You get in there, go through security, they take your electronic devices, hop in the elevator, hop off on the 10th floor, big, massive window overlooking Manhattan, the Brooklyn Bridge, and a beautiful American flag waving right in front of us. And the courtroom itself was also immaculate, like big grand hall, tall ceilings, like wood, beautiful furniture everywhere, and the old Catholic style church pews in the back for us peons this time. But overall, I gotta say, for people that showed up, I think they got a real treat, because the venue was phenomenal. The actual arguments went on for about an hour and a half-ish, also phenomenal. And it was everything that you could probably wish for it to be without it being TV. And for anyone else that has seen the inside of a courtroom before, you know that a lot of times it's honestly just closer to a slightly larger office room. But this was a real treat to be in the halls of justice, shall we say. What do you think about the venue and the setting of the scene?
Dude, there was so much like marble and beautiful lights and echoey hallways. Like, it was definitely a majestic place, and everything other than the wooden pews for the audience to sit on was absolutely fantastic, bro. Like, I'd never been in. This is my first time being in like an official courthouse, and it was pretty damn cool. Especially like I love that I'm able to say that my first one was for something cool that like I believe in, that I think is going to go well. But like, man, it was so awesome. And for the folks at home that don't know, I have decided that I'm going to be buying the court transcript. And if there's other folks on the Degen Roundtable that are interested in literally doing a read through, yeah. So me and Zenith, bro, we're gonna be reading through the actual transcript for you guys at home. So as soon as that's available, I'm gonna purchase that stuff. I've already talked to Nuclear Herbs. I've got the lady's contact. I'm gonna be calling her up on Monday during business hours, and Nicole, I can't remember her name, but she's the one who did the transcribing at the court scene. So we're going to basically do a play-by-play for all the folks at home, and it took about an hour 40 for them to go through the entire court hearing. So we're gonna basically put on our best makeup and our best suits and accents and all sorts of things, and we're gonna be pretending to be Judge Auntie Carroll, the SEC lawyers, the Richard Hart lawyers. It's gonna be a great time. So I'm super stoked to get into that. So like we can give you guys at home the best information possible. So it's gonna be freaking sweet. I'm super stoked about it, man.
True. Alrighty, so we're going to be talking about that today. I want to talk about some other macroeconomic stuff going on. We have jobs reports that came out on the 1st, aka I believe that was Friday actually. Yeah, and then we also have. Sure. I just want to cover the inflation and data from last month as well, because all of that is leading into the Fed meeting coming up on the 7th here. And then obviously, not to bury the lead on this one, but the presidential election is 2 days away. So folks, we told you this year is going to get crazy and crazier. It, in fact, got so crazy that the feds decided to raid a guy's house and seize and euthanize his pet squirrel. So didn't see that one on the bingo card, but that happened. So justice for Peanut. And other than that, get out there and vote, make your voices heard, because it sounds crazy, but this election could legitimately come down to like 500 votes in Pennsylvania. That literally could be the thing that decides it, which is wild.
We will certainly see, bro. It's gonna be a good time. And I think like the sentiment among all the other people, the campfire stories that everyone's telling is, doesn't matter who gets elected. Money printer very likely is gonna go burr, and our bags will very likely pump. So like, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen, but if other people are saying it's gonna happen, then I'll just regurgitate it, because that's what I do, is I regurgitate campfire stories and things. So I think it's going to be a good time. You said the squirrel's name was Peanut. I remember seeing that somewhere on some little thing that some dude squirrel got euthanized. It's like,
just go look up Elon Musk's Twitter. It's all over that.
Oh, okay.
Old justice for Peanut. So
justice
that was actually
Peanut.
New York State was the body that took care of that, and
no surprise there.
Filed multiple warrants and got multiple signatures on this to go raid a guy's house for a squirrel.
Dang. That is interesting. Yeah, this is from The Guardian. Yeah.
Well, fair enough. The other thing that you mentioned there was we don't have the crystal ball, but we are curious to see what the markets are doing. I personally happen to think that we are coming up on a bit of an inflection point. So we're going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin charts, Ethereum charts, and some of the other L1s and other stuff that we are interested in. Cough, cough, Pulse Chain, and Hex as well. So
very good.
Your butts, because we're going to be looking at that as well, doing a little bit of TA, and we're going to be looking at the ETF flow data as well. But before we get to all the good stuff, we got one final thing to do. Will.
It's the most important reason for the season, the best thing that we ever do on this show, the only thing that we should ever do, and that's chat shoutouts. Maybe not the only thing. We should probably talk to you guys about the things that you think's important.
We should probably
we appreciate
content first.
Yeah, we do appreciate everyone talking right back to us. Yeah, we should definitely be focusing on having a good time and making sure that we are actually talking about things people care about. But one of those is, talking right back to you guys. So whenever y'all reach out and chat with us, we're going to reach right back and chat with you. So we don't have a terribly crazy number of chat shoutouts today. But that's good, because it's a Friday and we're having fun. So folks, if you guys want to say some stuff to us, just go ahead and write it on in the chats. We'll bring it up as necessary throughout the show. But we make a point throughout, our regular programming to take a break here and there to make sure that we interact with you guys just as much as you interact here with us. Starting with our very good friend, my IRL friend, actually, Moonmutt. He says, hello, my Degen friends. Hello to you too, good sir, Mr. Moonmutt. We appreciate you watching in. I met this guy quite a long time ago, and let me tell you, he is a fantastic, awesome person. I love seeing you in the chats, broski. It's going to be a great time, and we're going to get into some good stuff today. Up next in the chat shoutouts, we have none other than Russ with his fantastic dog. What do you call it? Profile pictures. His little dog profile picture saying it's Sunday. You're right. It is Sunday. It's not Friday. I am a little bit jumbled up. It's been a hell of a week. I've been done nothing but driving and staying up late and talking to people and shake hands, kiss babies, and it's been a crazy time. So you are absolutely right, bro. It is Sunday. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you, Russ. Glad to have you with us. Up next, we got Tam saying, "What's up, fam? What is up, Tam? Good to see you. Number one cheerleader in the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Good to see you here, Tam. You've been doing some fantastic posting on Twitter, by the way, so shout out to you as well." Next up, we've got Mr. Paul Sachs saying, "What up, party peoples? What's up to you too, good sir?" Mr. Paul Sachs, another real life friend of mine. Oh, shoot. I forgot I have my mouse right there. I just started clicking all over things on my laptop here, so I can't see what Paul Sachs is saying. Let me open that back. Okay, yeah, what's up, party peoples? What's up to you too, Paul Sachs? Once I figure out my technical abilities over here and figure out everything going on, then it'll be an excellent time. But it's good to see you, Paul Sachs. Real life friend, great dude. I highly recommend you guys meet him and make good friends with him. And if you're ever rolling through the areas where he is at, I will leave it up to him to be able to tell you where he is whenever you guys make good friends and stuff. But go see him, go check him out, and go have fun and hang out with Paul. He's a great person, and he does lots of streaming, and he makes some great content, and he has good analysis on lots of things out there. Next up in the old chat shoutouts, we got Tam again. I am so proud of you guys. Thank you, Tam. We appreciate
Much
that.
appreciated.
We do our best. We definitely do our best. After that, we've got none other than Arceus. Thanks for bringing in the squirrel news, speaking to my most deeply held values. Absolutely. Arceus, it's good to see you. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's a Pokemon reference or something like that. But good to see you, Arceus, and I'm glad that you like the squirrel content. We try and hit where it's near and dear to people's hearts and things. Up next in chat shout out, so we've got Luna C Point saying, "Hey gang, hey Luna, what's going on? Good to see you. Welcome to the chats. Glad to have you here with us. We're going to be going through a lot of excellent and awesome stuff today." After that, we've got none other than Chad Donnerschwanz, the Pepe Frog astronaut, ripped bodybuilder man on the moon. Hello, fellow based crypto bros. Hello to you too, Chad. It's always good to see you rocking and rolling in the chats, man. This dude's an absolute riot. Welcome, broski. Good to see ya. And I do believe, Mr. Zenith, is that everybody for chat shoutouts?
That is it. That
awesome.
is all we got for the chat shoutouts.
Some interesting feedback. So I'm noticing, like, not only when Mrs. Producer's producing, but also for you on my screen, it's showing me the 2-starred chats. Like, even though we've already gone through all the starred chats and everything. So that's an interesting. Oh, they just went away. Cool beans. I wonder why StreamYard does that. It does that all the time. That's super interesting. But anyways, that does take care of chat shoutouts. We appreciate you guys at home listening, not only listening in, but interacting as well. For those of you that are watching us live, like, it's super awesome, and we love being able to chit chat with you. Maybe not necessarily one-on-one, but it's kind of like we're talking to you through almost like a one-way mirror with a 7-second delay, and then you guys get back to us through another one-way mirror. But yeah, it's super awesome. And for those of you guys that are catching us on the replay, we super duper appreciate you guys as well. And those of you guys commenting down in the chats after the show goes live and is recorded and up on YouTube. Everybody, all of our viewers, we appreciate you guys also very much. And before I forget, make sure that you guys like that smash button. And let's go ahead and get into the substance of the show, Mr. Z. How do you want to do this today?
I want to get this one out of the way first. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover the presidential election because, to be honest, it's one of the ones that interests me the least, but I know it is right now the biggest story in the United States that we happen to live in. So first off, this is coming from 270 to win. This is the 2024 presidential election interactive map. So right now we have it showing from the 2024 consensus polling data. And right now, there are about 7 states that are the swing states or the battleground states that might decide it all. We have Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. Right now, based on all the polling and everything going else, all the other states have enough data that they can somewhat reliably say what they think is going to go to. So obviously, like Washington, Oregon, California, no duh, those are going to go for for the Democratic Party. And then we have a lot of the interior of the United States, including like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, like, yeah, again, very deep red states that it's going to go that way. And then all the ones in gray, based on the consensus data, is at least within the margin of error, if I'm not mistaken. So as it stands right now, before we start breaking down some of the other stuff, the Republican candidate, Donald Trump, has 219 electoral votes, quote unquote, locked in. And Kamala Harris, the Democratic current vice president and nominee, has 226 votes, again, quote unquote, locked in. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this up to the 538 model. The 538 is a popular polling group, and what they've done here is they filled in a little bit more of the data. It's still not 100% guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination, but what changes here is it says that, all right, Arizona is leaning enough Trump way to go ahead and count that. Georgia leans enough that way to count that. Same with North Carolina. So there are now 4 states that are still left open. That's going to be Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Obviously, the site is called 270 to win because in order to win the presidential election, you need at least 270 electoral votes to count. 538 is the number of total delegates in the entire United States that will be assigned based on the voting principles and then sent. Their elector slate will be sent to Congress to be confirmed and then ratified. So what we're looking at here is that for Donald Trump to win, he needs to win at least one of the states listed above. So that excluding Nevada, because Nevada would put him at 268, which again, still not enough to get him over the finish line. So what we're looking at instead is that Donald Trump probably needs to win Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania to secure the election. In which case, what that means is that, conversely, Kamala Harris needs to win all 3 of those, or she needs to win 2 out of 3 of those and then pick up a few other states along the way. So let's go ahead and go down to the polling of the actual states going on right now. So we talked about national polling right now has about Kamala Harris as a 1% lead, 48-3 to 47-3. And then the states that we talked about previously, Michigan is one of them right here. Right now, Harris is leading 1.5% in the polls. Up next, we also had Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania right here has Trump up by 0.1%. And Wisconsin currently has Harris up by 0.8%. So these are some very tight races. These are well within the error of margin. So the only thing that's really going to change it is what happens on Tuesday, or there's a lot of early voting going on right now, so you don't even have to wait till Tuesday to go vote. If you can, go vote early and get your vote known and made and confirmed and locked in, because the race is going to be very tight. And when I said it could come down to about 500 votes in Pennsylvania, I'm not kidding, because Pennsylvania, as you saw, was literally 0.1% for Trump as the polling goes right now. And Pennsylvania has that magical 19 amount, which will put him at 280 and put him over. So that is how it stands right now. We'll go ahead and fill in the map as it stands. Nevada's Trump. There you go. So if the polling is accurate right now, which anything can change, we still got days left, but as it stands right now, Donald Trump is slightly, very slightly favored to win. But even then, again, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is locked in. Anything can happen. There's still time on the clock. That is what we got going on. Will, any thoughts about the election?
I don't have any thoughts about the election itself. I have thoughts about the Electoral College process. One of the things that I want to point out to folks at home, for those of you that don't know, apart from Nebraska and Maine, every single state in the union, if there's a 51 percentile in favor of one candidate or the other, they get 100% of that state's votes. So like if you take a look over at Washington over there, it's got 12 votes, 12 delegates. So if half of the state wants Trump and half of the state wants Harris, but that's like a small percentage of a point in favor of Harris, then all 12 votes go for Harris. If half of the state wants Trump and then a half point percentage is in favor on that side, then all 12 go one way or the other. One of the things that frustrates me a lot about the Electoral College voting process, apart from Nebraska and Maine, which those states do it right, every single state, it's a fucking all or nothing. There is no margin for error. Everyone that's like outside of major areas, that basically your vote doesn't matter. If you're not in alignment with whatever the major population areas of the state are voting, then your vote essentially doesn't count. This is one of the issues that I have with the Electoral College, is like every single delegate is not like they don't vote individually based on their district. So like in Washington State, you know, I don't bother voting because it's like 84% Democrat, or it's like 50 or 60% Democrat, and they well, also because I'm, often running about in the country and I have to go do the mail-in ballot thing and vote with a QR code or something. I might look into doing that. We'll see. That's what I did last time. But the the majority of the votes move every single electoral college member, rather than like if there's some sort of nuance somewhere, if like half of the state like wants one person and half of the state wants the other person, the electoral college votes aren't split 50-50. It's 100% one way or the other. So like whatever the minority position is in every single state with electoral college members, all of their preferences essentially get ignored for whatever the majority of the state is. And this is the way that it's always worked, or this is just the system as it exists right now. I would like to personally see all of the states adopt Nebraska and Maine's system, where they have split electoral college members. So like if you guys saw, Nebraska had 4 in favor of Republican, 1 in favor of Democrat. And that basically, like Omaha and Lincoln, I think that those are the guys that get those are probably the cities that have a single delegate that's on the Democratic side, and the rest of the state has all of their delegates in favor of the Republican side. And up in Maine, it's split a little bit like similarly, but in the opposite direction, where there's a little bit of Republicanism and mostly Democrat stuff. So like the people in those 2 states are getting a more clear representation of what their actual votes and what their actual preferences are. In states such as California, if you vote outside of like whatever the major population centers are voting, then your preferences essentially don't matter. I would like to see each electoral candidate represent essentially what the people of that area want. I don't even know why we use the fucking electoral college system. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm sure that there's some fancy schmancy like reason and it's well thought through and stuff, but this is just something that that I've thought about for a long time and kind of bothers me, because it's like if you're outside of the majority in one state, then like you don't matter, because like 100% of that state's franchise power is going in one direction, as opposed to being split to represent the actual views of the state. So those are just my thoughts regarding the entire process. It's something that I wish would be changed a little bit, but like I said, I'm not necessarily in a position of power to do that. And if I had my druthers, then the world would be much, much different, probably for the worst or something like that. It functions pretty well the way it does right now. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, if that strikes any chord with you, or any folks in the audience. If you guys have thoughts as well, throw them up in the comments. But that's what I got regarding the election.
The only thing I have for you regarding the Electoral College is that I respectfully disagree, which is that the system as it is designed now was designed to preserve minority rights as opposed to just allow people to appeal purely to population centers, because a lot of the political debate comes down between rural versus urban interests, and there are different interests for different parts. I think that the Electoral College, as it stands right now, does a very good job of preserving the rights of a lot of these smaller states that have less population than the other ones, but still make up for a lot of other parts of being part of the country, whether it comes to production, representation, population, some of the ideas and whatnot. It's that kind of idea. So, again, is it a perfect system? Absolutely not. Is it better than a lot of the other ones? I would argue yes. And I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to see that our democratic republic functions pretty damn well, in my personal opinion.
Well, so how does it function then for like the states that have the split electoral college, like Nebraska and Maine? How do they operate? And I would essentially just prefer to see the rest of the states adopt their stance. Does that make sense? So that the people that are in the areas get represented. You know what I mean?
I understand, but the question I have for you is, what is your intention? I don't understand the exact ways that Maine and Nebraska run their electoral account system, but my understanding is that what they do is that they break it up by various counties as opposed to just pure
Correct.
Population. So the
It's like the way like each electoral college member is supposed to represent like an area, is my understanding, right? So like if each of those areas had their own little person that like spoke for that area, then it would like, so like with we'll take my home state as an example, right? So Washington State, there's a whole bunch of different little counties, and there's a certain number of people in each one. So like if you take a look at King County, which is Seattle and Tacoma, I don't know if it includes Tacoma, but like the massive population area of Washington is along the inside water area, you were up there for a while, but like they would get, like 3 or 4 delegates. And then like Clallam County over on the far west where I'm from, they would probably get 1 delegate. Spokane might get 1 or 2 delegates. All the people in the middle of Washington would probably get 1 or 2 delegates. It would be split up amongst the state, but the whole state wouldn't like be just blue or just red. There would be a representation of each individual little part of the state. However, those people in their vote. So like if you were to take a closer look at Nebraska, and you see that they have 1 delegate that's in favor of Democrat, and 4 delegates of the total 5 delegates that they get, you've got 1 in favor of the Democratic and 4 in favor of the Republican. I'd be willing to bet that the 1 Democratic one is either in Omaha or in Lincoln, and the 4 Republican ones are indicative of the entire rest of the state, which is like where all the farming and everything that's like, the smaller population areas happened. I just think that like the whole state voting in one color or the whole state voting in the other color, it leaves out the representation for the smaller areas and for the smaller people in the smaller area, like in the smaller communities. So like, I just don't see why 100% of the delegate vote should go with like a 60% majority. Like, or like if there was a 60% majority, then 60% of the delegates would be in whatever color that like that favor. Or if like, I don't know if, again, I don't know if it's by population or by county.
Again, I don't know if it's by population or by county. As it stands right now, the states are kind of by population, and then you can imagine that the states are the by county, but instead of the county, it's states for the United States. So the system that we have right now is actually a good of a split between both, because the general population of a state is counted, but the individual states themselves have their electors. I wouldn't be opposed to what I think you're proposing, which is that you almost do like electoral colleges inside of each state, which is based on county or region as opposed to just the sheer general population. But at the same time, based on the way that the meta game kind of breaks down right now, is that even though the urban centers do make up a large chunk of each state's population, I think that there's enough population in the rest of the state to kind of counteract that. And at the same time, I think that the electoral college as it stands right now is a good mix, which is that the states are the individual areas that protect minority interest rates, assuming that each of the minority states is the thing being protected. But inside of them, you still do have a bit of that general population vote as opposed to the thing. So, I mean, one of the things we're probably going to hear is people talking about how the electoral college has thwarted the general population or the popular vote yet again. It's like, okay, that's kind of how it's designed to work, which is that each of the states is their own individual sovereign state, and they all have to get together to vote, as opposed to just amassing a single state or a few states that are so massive that they can just outvote the rest of the entire country. So,
well, yeah. So like each state would keep the same. What I'm thinking. So I'm looking up actually how Nebraska does it, and they have 2 votes that are based on the statewide vote, and 1 vote for each of the 3 congressional districts. Okay. So that's how Nebraska does it. So whichever one has the majority, they get 2, and then each of the 3 districts inside of Nebraska, they each get 1. They each get 1 of their like respective. So like, I'm guessing that like 2 of the 3 electoral districts in Nebraska are red, which is likely, and then I'm guessing that Lincoln and Nebraska are inside of the 3rd one, which is blue, and so they would essentially get 3. They get their 3 districts, and then they get the other 2. It's funny because actually they tried voting it back to winner take all back in 97 or something like that, but just to try and make it more like a more Republican state. But and I'm guessing that Maine does it similarly. But yeah, I don't like the idea of winner take all. I think that the oh shoot, look at that. The popular vote in each congressional.
There are pros and cons to each of the systems, but I think I understand what you're getting at there.
Yeah, it's like I don't like that my opinion because I'm in the 40th percentile, because I'm in like the lower half, is just like fucking wiped clean, you know? So like it would put a couple red votes in Washington. It would put a couple red votes in California. It'd probably put a couple blue votes in Texas. It'd probably put a couple blue votes in, you know, some of the other states. But like it would be more representative of what like the actual I suppose I'm just talking about a more popular vote sort of thing, but like still being decided by the areas in which people move. One of the things that like political candidates do is they basically only campaign in like a handful of states, and then they do like, you know, they do maintenance in the states that are more or less sold to them. Like you're not going to see Kamala rolling around in California and spending a ton of time there, because California is like basically bought and sold in favor of the Democrats. It's the way it's more or less always been, just like Texas is pretty much always bought and sold in favor of the Republicans. And, you know, same in the rest of the states. So those states don't get a whole lot of like campaign presence. The president only focuses on the place that, like, you know, the fucking swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. So like they spend a lot of their they spend a lot of their campaigning time there and just kind of like ignore the ones that are already like voting in favor or something like that. So that's just another thing that I would point out with the system that's like not terribly interesting to me. But
to give you a little bit of pushback, this is something that's always kind of puzzled me, which is that I don't necessarily understand why people are upset about the idea or get frustrated about the idea that it seems so odd that presidential candidates are picking and choosing probably like a dozen states at the most to spend the majority of their time. Sure, they probably pass through a bunch of other states and actually like go maybe do like one or two rallies there, but put a lot of their targeting into individual states. I mean, from the game theory perspective, it makes the most sense because you need to focus your effort where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, which is that if you are going to dump money into securing a state that you've already secured for whatever reason, then it's kind of wasted value or wasted time and energy at that point. But if there's an area that could be swayed either way, that I think is, like game theory wise, it makes sense to put a lot of resources there because you're actually fighting over those things that can be fought over as opposed to fighting over something that you already had great control over. And the inverse goes the other way, which is that if there are states that you know that you are just not going to win, then yeah, sure, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to go there, or at least spend a whole lot of effort or money or value or attention there. So it's the idea of getting the most bang for your buck. It's, at the end of the day, it is a competition. It is a competition to see who's going to get the most votes, the most support, although realistically it's just most votes because support turns into votes, and votes are the only thing that are counted. So I understand that people get frustrated by the idea of like battleground states, but what that is just a representation of which states have populations that are as close to about 50-50 as possible that can be swung either way.
I'm reading more on how Maine and Nebraska do it, and I like it better because it is a popularity contest. It's just a popularity contest within a state as opposed to within a district.
I mean, I have many thoughts on the idea that voting is a popularity contest, but
it 100% is.
No, this is more of the Uncle Z getting on the soapbox and philosophizing about what should or what ought or why and the reasoning behind things. But I mean, if anybody caught the book club that I did with Christian Hines talking about Bastiat's the law, universal suffrage seems like a bit of a paradoxical thing that I think that Bastiat makes a very good point. So other than that, let's transition into something else. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about markets? You want to talk about Fed data, or do you just want to talk about the juicy stuff, the Richard Hart stuff?
Let's save the juicy stuff for the second half of the show, I think.
All right, we'll torture people a little bit longer, and by that
we'll talk
about
You're gonna do some
markets,
TA,
a little bit of TA, but this is also a little bit of news first and foremost. So we had a bit of a interesting Thursday and Friday in the stock market. We actually dropped about 2% from where we ended on Wednesday to that swing low. That's about 1.97%. For the stock market, that's actually a large move. That's actually a very large move. So one of the articles that I sent Will was a news update from Telegram, and it talked about how there was almost $1 trillion lost in the traditional market. And the reason for that was because the market dropped about 2%. And fun fact, the entire stock market is about $55 trillion. So 2% move against a $55 million market, yeah, it's about 1%. So that's what we got there. Tell you what, Will, let's go ahead and cover this now because we got a good one.
Ooh.
I know, wild. We got from Crypto Artie, 1999, super chat. Thank you so much, my man. He says, it was great to meet you both this weekend. Love the background, Zenith. Too bad we couldn't talk about it at the seminar. Video by Decentralize Me got me super pumped. Would love your take on the vaults and MakerDAO if you want to discuss. I'm unfortunately going to have to apologize to you on this one because I don't entirely understand what you are referring to here. I think the project that you're referring to is not my area of specialization, nor do I have a whole lot of knowledge on it. Will, any thoughts?
Well, first off, it was great meeting Crypto Artie over the weekend. Shout out to everybody that came over, but especially shout out to you, good sir. You gave some absolutely fantastic pointers when you walked up to the microphone during the Pulse Chain tour, and I'm super glad to have met you and your lovely wife. And let me tell you, bro, like there's just nothing but great people at like all of these Hexagon events. I have not met a bad person yet. I love fucking like just the quality of people that come to these things just blows my mind, man. And it was just I don't know how to put it into words. So thank you so much, bro, for this fantastic super chat. Thank you for coming over, sharing your thoughts with us at the concert. And I'm also not sure what Decentralize Me. He might have been talking about Axis video. That could be the one.
I think that's the Alive protocol that he was talking about. That Axis presented. But as far as this one goes, we'll put it on the notes. We'll go look into it, and we'll see if we can get you an answer.
Okay.
Hit us up with an @ in the Telegram. Just send us any questions, comments, concerns you got in there. We'll try to get back to you as quickly as we can. But yeah, shoot us any info in there, and we will definitely read it and try to form some intelligible opinions. Or we'll try to grab Nate, because I'm sure he probably knows exactly what you're talking about. So I apologize for this one. But like Will said, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you and honestly meet everybody out there. The Hexagon community is genuinely fantastic, I think, especially all the folks that show up in person for events. And you get a different crowd at each of the different events, which I think is cool. But for anyone concerned that going to a Pulse Chain Tour event or a Hexagon meetup kind of thing is going to be a bunch of like Zoomers talking about NFTs and like their Riz and how somebody's got Skibbity Ohio Sigma energy. It's like, no. We actually have a lot of different people from all walks of life. It's maybe some young guns like me, a lot of military folks actually, but I think that's kind of just a thing in the finance space. There's a weird throughput for a lot of people's military careers where all these like financial institutes show up and give presentations. You just like kind of naturally accumulate knowledge. But yeah, other than that, you get a lot of I'm not going to call people old people, but gentlemen and ladies that are older and more experienced than I. So like shout out to Bill of the Actuator Project. He's a perfect example. And even Nuclear Herbs and his wife, they are absolutely fantastic. And they're some of my oldest Pulse Chain Tour friends, and I love seeing them at every event because I just have a good time hanging out with them. Sure, they got a couple years on me, but at the same time, like they're just good, fun people to hang out with, and that's pretty much the majority of the Hexagons. So I got nothing but love for all those folks. I got nothing but love for RG3 and SJ and Kayla and Black Hexagon who put on all the events because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, a lot of money as well. They put it out there.
I have written a note inside of our leadership and production chat to check out Decentralize Me. Again, I'm not sure what it is, but I will take a look. And I've also put a link down in the live chat for those of you guys that are not a member of the Degen Roundtable Telegram. It's free. It's super awesome. If you guys have any sort of projects you want us to check out, then go in there and like flag one of the admin's attentions, and we will see what we can do to look at stuff that concerns you guys. And I'm sure that there's other people in there that are interested in looking at stuff. There's a specific spot. If now, and disclaimer here, if folks are going to hop in there to try and shill stuff, we will likely either forward your stuff to the shill channel. because there's a whole bunch of different subtopics within the Degen Roundtable community. But if people are asking for us to look at questionable things or check out like protocols that are brand spanking new or like look into stuff, then it's totally different than like folks going in there and trying to be like, hey, check out my little coin thing or whatever. That sort of stuff usually gets deleted and banned, or like we ignore them, or we all make fun of them. That's one of the really cool things about the Degen Roundtable Telegram group, is a lot of people just ignore all the pointless shills. We're all in there trying to help each other get better and try and help each other learn more and improve as human beings, more so than like, hey, buy this cool, X, Y, and Z PDQ thing or whatever the hell. So
Yeah,
I'm going to check out this decentralized me thing and see what we can find in there. And yeah, it'll be pretty nifty. So I've got it written on my to-do list.
Fair enough. Alrighty, let's get back to the markets. I will cover this stuff very quickly because I know it can be a little dry for folks. But by the way, if you want some excellent TA, go check Axis Alive, his channel. He posted the segment that he did at the Pulse Chain Tour Live on Friday. He had a fantastic segment. He goes real deep on like the sort of like value of money kind of charts, which is like the actual value of the US dollar compared to a lot of things. So go check out his stream. It's on his channel, and it's also on Pulse Chain Tour channel as well, I believe. But that was fantastic. Anyways, back to the charts. So yeah, there we go. S&P 500 having a bit of a rough time. This is something I've been saying for a hot minute, but I personally think that the S&P 500 has been a bit overbought currently. It's running a little too hot for too long, in my personal opinion. Like, even looking at the RSI, we spent a lot of time up in that above 60 region, and it's been at a time where it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of organic growth going on in the market. It just seems like there's a lot of just more asset class investor people pumping more money into the system because they don't know really where else to put it. That's what I got on that one. As far as Bitcoin, we had some interesting times lately, because we had a day 53 high where we went all the way up to about 73,600. Notably,
new all-time high.
Actually not all-time high, but
never mind.
We just almost touched the previous all-time high before we got rejected, and we've gone all the way back down to 68,700, where we are currently sitting.
Yeah.
It was a move that I was not expecting personally, because I've been following this trend line that I've had since the beginning of March. It seems that Bitcoin has been kind of like chopping sideways to slightly downwards, but we finally broke out of that trend right around here, the late end of October, because we went up, hit my trend line, came back down, bounced off the 20-day moving average before we spiked all the way back up, just about to all-time highs, and now we're settling back down, and now we're testing a little more resistance right around that 20-day moving average. So I am a 60-day cycle Bitcoin kind of guy, aka the Bob Lucas cycles. And what I'm looking at here, this yellow arrow, this is my day 60. Fun fact, that's on Tuesday, November 5th, aka election day. So theoretically, if you had a perfect 60-day cycle, it would fall for a cycle low right there. But with having a day 53 high, what that tells me is that we're probably going to have a right translated cycle, aka cycle is going to run a little bit long. And then based on the statistical analysis that I've done in the past, I personally think there is a 95% chance that the cycle is going to be less than 78 days. The reason that I say that is because our average is right about like 59.5, and our standard deviation is about 9 days. It's like 8.9. What that translates to is all of your data, 95% of your data is going to be within 2 standard deviations. We're already past the 2 standard deviations on the left side of the bell curve, so now we're going to the right side of the bell curve. So that tells me that there's not, that right now as we stand, based on the information of the day 53 high, that we're probably going to have a cycle low somewhere around the 14th of November, because that is my point where it's 1 standard deviation out to the right, and that is what I'm looking at. So based on that, I could see it possible that we come back down, touch the 50-day moving average, but we're well above the 200-day moving average, which is our long-term momentum indicator. And I personally think it's about time that we start respecting that 200-day a little bit more. We had some real anomalies going on here between July and October, where we were well below the 200-day moving average, which does not happen typically in a bull run, which we are well into a bull run right now. So with that being said, I think we are looking like we're getting towards more quote-unquote normal movement of price action going on. But other than that, like, get ready for the rest of the year to come in, because I think we're going to have some interesting data coming in on Bitcoin, and there's a very high likelihood that we are going to finish the year above all-time highs as it stands right now. That's my personal take. Outside of that, the number 2 coin, Ethereum. It's looking... Ethereum has really been lagging for me. And ever since we had this shelf on the end of July, beginning of August, where we really dropped from the trading range of about 2,850 to 4,000, we've now dropped to a trading range of 2,850 to about $2,200. This is one that's actually kind of puzzling for me, because I personally was expecting Ethereum, which is up as far as I can tell, our other number 2 blue chip token. The only other one is Bitcoin. But this cycle, Bitcoin has just been outperforming Ethereum very, very well. And right now, Ethereum is just lagging behind. We're sitting at about 2,450. Excuse me, had an extra zero on there. So again, we're in this trading range between 2,800, 2,200. And until we shift above that, we can probably expect to stay here for a little bit. As far as what Vitalik is doing and all that going on with the Ethereum Foundation, I would not be surprised if we're not going to see a big move upwards until we get some more bullish news, whether it's network upgrades or it's statistical data about like people pulling all their Ethereum off markets or it being staked or locked up, whatever. There's many factors that could be more bullish news. We just haven't gotten that yet on Ethereum, in my personal opinion. Going to number 3. That would be Solana, in my personal opinion. And I think Solana has actually had a bit of a move. So right now we're sitting at $162, but notably, it looks like there's a decent support or resistance line that keeps getting flipped right at about 160. So for the past 2 weeks, we went above that resistance line, and it looked like we might even be turning it into support now if this confirms and Solana goes up from here. But ever since March, we had Bitcoin all-time highs. We've really been fluctuating between this range of like $200-ish to about 120. And that 120 level, Solana has held with a vengeance. You're probably tired of hearing me saying that, but I think it's true. The only statistical anomalies that we have was the massive crash on August 5th, and then a few very quick wicks back in early April when we were establishing that range. So other than that, I think Solana it's continuing to do what's been doing for the majority of the year, which is just being a solid performer, and it has not made those massive dumps like Ethereum has, and has consistently stayed in that range. So, Will, any other coins you want to look at?
There is nothing in particular that I want to look at. The Knucklebones seem to be saying the stuff on the Knucklebone chart, and the campfire stories are rocking and rolling, as far as I'm aware.
Fair enough. Moonpill Rational Optics was asking, just made it in. Tell me some good news. More dip? Maybe. I think there's a decent chance for a little more dip, especially in the Bitcoin market. Probably have another week of volatile to slightly downwards action, in my personal opinion. So that 50-day moving average is right about $65,000. That's what it is. Zenith, so you're saying Solana is a gigachat of the market? LOL. A little bit. As much as I hate saying that, because Solana is a Silicon Valley backed coin, and it's also a network that has performance issues more than a lot of the other networks. But at the same time, though, you can't deny the chart when you look at it. It is what it is, and the data is rock solid. Alrighty. Will, any thoughts on the market? Do you think we're going into a period of weakness or strength based on what I was telling you there? Bro,
I think it's all fucking fairy tales. I don't look at charts and try and determine what's coming next. That is not my forte. That is not my specialty. And every time I've tried doing it, I've been wrong. And I notice that oftentimes when the people that are really good at it do it are wrong. So it's like, I'm not going to speculate, but I would say, like, man, it sure would be nice if more people bought, because that number go up, and I would really not like to see people sell, because then number go down. So that's if I had my fancy schmancy chart here, I would show you guys my my TA that I do, which is super duper on point. But Yeah, I got nothing as far as like looking at the squiggly lines and making calls and determinations and things.
Fair enough. No more squiggly lines, but I do have some bright colors for you. Do you for anyone that remembers our Q4 thesis show, this is the Bitcoin monthly returns. Everyone was asking, are we going to have Uptober this year? Answer was, yes, we did in fact have Uptober. We ended October 10.7% higher than we started. And if you also remember back to the Q4 thesis show, Jay pointed out something very interesting, which is that traditionally, whenever we have a green September, we usually have a very positive next 3 months. So we ended September green, and we just confirmed our first month out of 3 as green as well. So I'm not going to say it's a trend, but the 3 times it's happened in the past, it hit every time.
I mean, that's something. You know, it's a pattern until it's not.
This is true. Jay and I are big fans of this one, or big believers, shall we say, rather, which is that we're going to assume that the trend is going to hold until we have confirmation that the trend is broken. And as it stands right now, the trend is holding. So I'm going to assume that November is going to be a good month as well.
I mean, hey, if it works, it works.
Or, sorry, November. I assume November is going to be a good month as well. Based on everything and the way it's set up right now, including the 4-year cycle, I think it's going to be a good November, hopefully good December, and we even see that magical Santa rally, as we always like to say. By the way, we have
the Santa rally.
Yeah, that's what it's called when you have those good times in December. Other than that, though, real quick, some ETF data. Total Bitcoin ETFs have been pumping for Bitcoin in particular. This last month was a big Bitcoin ETF month, as you can see by the big old green candles here. Let's see if I can change. Nope, can't change time scale, unfortunately. But yeah, Bitcoin is making a lot of inflows right now. Not a whole lot of selling going on, and I think that might be part of what we're seeing going on here. Outside of that, though, Will, I have one more little fairy tale narrative that I want to throw onto the heap. We have a report from CNBC. This is actually talking about this report right here, which is the report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But the bottom line is that in October, we only added 12,000 jobs. But I think here is the real kicker, which is that non-farm payrolls increased 12,000 for the month, down sharply from September and below the Dow Jones estimate that was going to be 100,000 jobs. So what that says is that they were expecting the report to come back with 100,000 jobs added in October. In reality, only added 12,000 jobs. You know, some might call that a 90% dump, so to speak. So you tell me.
I don't know. This is not my area of specialty, man. But it's interesting that these gentlemen do the striking right in time for these hurricanes, and their whole thing is airplanes in the sky. So I don't know. Seems a bit odd. That's just my thoughts.
Could be. But yeah, here we have the monthly job creation in the U.S. for January 2022 through October 2024. That is a rather small candle we have right there at the end for October. Much, much smaller than all of the rest. Very true. Alrighty. Other than that, CPI, this is a little bit of old data. This came out October 10th, which means our next update is going to be, I believe it's November 13th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that is a Wednesday. I believe that is where we're going to get our next inflation data, which might happen to coincide with a Bitcoin 60-day cycle low. I'm just trying to add logs to this fire, Will. Try to build up that narrative. Try to build up the campfire, if you know what I'm saying.
Consumer price, man. Again, this is all stuff that is outside of my area of expertise, but I like the story. It makes a good story.
It's true. So other than that, we have been going for a hot minute, which means it is about time for something else.
For this?
For that. Voila.
Time for chat shoutouts, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies. I'm trying to catch my several computers up. I've also got on the subject of campfire stories, I've been looking at all the stuff going on with crypto news. It's a little bit different from the macroeconomic stuff, but there's a lot of things that have been happening over the last several weeks and whatnot. But before we do that, time for the chat shoutouts. Okay, my laptop is finally caught up and I can see the things that are going on live. All right, sweet. So our first chat shout out comes from the Chad Donnerschwanz, based. Speaking of these fellow based crypto bros, you're absolutely right, sir. We are based. Next up, we've got Just Live saying, hey, I just want commercials off my TV. I can feel that sentiment, bro. I personally don't watch TV, but I'm not terribly fond of political commercials. They generally amount to smear campaigns and like just silliness that's nothing of substance, which is what I would necessarily be interested in. So I'm totally down to not see commercials, and I hope that you guys all well, a great way to not see commercials is just turn off the damn TV. That's one way to do it. I wonder if there's if there's a way that you can like pay for that. That's one of the things that I do with YouTube Premium is I just pay YouTube and I don't watch commercials. I don't see advertisements. I would much rather pay the people directly.
Go get ad block.
You could get ad block as well. That works. I prefer to pay for the service because then I don't have to worry about like updating the ad block and doing the other stuff. I'm going to pay for it some way, somehow.
It automatically updates itself. You're good.
I get little.
Okay.
I'm actually starting to get ads for ad block where it's like, hey, bro, we've updated automatically just so you know. And these are how many ads we're blocking. And it's like, shut up. I don't want to see you. You're becoming an ad now.
You don't want to high five the ad block every once in a while? Be like, yeah, good job, man.
Nope. Maybe I should pay ad block instead of paying YouTube. But anyways, I figure, fuck it. I'll just pay YouTube. Next up in chat shoutouts, we got Kenturian54X. What's up, Degens? Didn't think we were getting a Sunday stream. Well, good sir. Here we are. I believe that I said we'd be streaming on Sunday last week, and so here we are talking to you about the stuff going on in the elections, the stuff going on in the macroeconomic news, and shortly the stuff going on with the Richard Hart trial, which is going to be a fun one.
True.
Next up, we've got none other than Yellowtail. Hey guys, what is up, Yellowtail? I keep getting you confused with Yellow Cake. This is Yellowtail, I believe, a cool Australian gentleman who has his own little farm and homesteading thing. So shout out to you, good sir. Glad to see you with us on this fine Sunday afternoon. Although it's probably like Monday morning for you or Monday mid-afternoon. I think that it's probably around noontime in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly, but good to see you, sir. Hope he's on the good list. Yes, you're absolutely on the good list, bro. You're doing the good work there down south, down in the land down under. Next up, we've got Disclosure Crypto saying, hey guys, what's up, Disclosure Crypto? Good to see you, amigo. Welcome to the Degen Roundtable. And he's asking if we could take a look at Gary Network. I don't know what Gary Network is. That like the Gary Gensler? Oh my God.
I don't know what this is.
I think that they made a Gary Gensler like blockchain. This is ridiculous.
I've never heard of it before, so I'm going to have to go into it.
Market cap is 5 million. I mean, I don't know. It looks like a shitcoin to me.
Here we go. We have Gary, the world's largest Web3 audio and video live streaming platform. What are you? Empowering content creators worldwide with blockchain. Unlock a world of live conversations and expert insights with Chingari, your ultimate platform for meaningful connections and knowledgeable sharing. Clearly a lie. There's one platform for meaningful connections, and it is the Degen Roundtable Telegram chat, so you should probably hop in there now while you can.
There you go. That's good advice.
All right, let's see. Gary on Network on-chain metrics. 5 million NFTs transferred on Aptos by Chingari users. Over 3 million wallet users on Solana, and over 4 million wallet users on Aptos. Live streaming, audio chat, text chat. Interesting. I know nothing about this, but let's go look at the chart. So it looks like we launched back in January of 2022. Notably, not a great time to be launching, but it is what it is. So all-time high, oh gosh, about a little less than $1, like 89, 90 cents-ish. Yeah, 90 cents. And right now we're currently sitting at 0.8 of a penny. So I'm not going to tell you it's great, but at the same time, it's the one concerning thing that I do see for the chart is the fact that we have a double bottom here in 2024 instead of having this one solidified bottom in September of 2023. So what that tells me is that this coin has fallen pretty hard ever since the March 2024 Bitcoin pump, when that really pumped the entirety of the market. So with that being said, it means that something has happened since then to go below the price low of September 2023. So what we're looking at here, total circulating supply is about 500 million. Total supply is 1 billion, which means that a little over half the supply is out right now. Market cap of about $5 billion. As far as CoinGecko, it says we're about 1,854th on the list. I don't know if that's good or bad or not, but overall, the volume looks pretty consistent for everything being said. I'm looking at the bottom lines here. Yeah, your volume is pretty consistent, if not slightly down. But, I mean, if you have any insights about Gary Network, please let us know, and we'll definitely look at it. But other than that, I have concerns about your altcoin, because in reality, that is what it is. It might have a beautiful use case for the market, but as far as price action goes right now, it looks like it's on a bit of almost a 2x from this like new all-time low, or not all-time. Yeah, that's an all-time low. But overall, I don't mean to insult you, but I'm just not impressed with what I'm seeing. I will not personally be putting any money into this network. So
yeah, if
for
you were
anyone
to
that
ask
does,
me,
I wish you luck.
if you were to ask me my thoughts on this thing, I would say, good luck. I'm not touching it.
For true.
We've
By
got
the way,
some more.
we've
got some more chats for the. Yes. So first up, we've got Mr. Gabriel, True DeFi, the Gabriel from Kansas City, and Randy from New York watching. You guys are entertaining and educating us tonight. Thanks. Shout out to you, Gabriel and Randy. We had an excellent time. They actually sat across from me in the VIP dinner that was put on by the Pulse Chain Tour. So shout out to Wild SJ, Kalen, and RG3 for putting on that fantastic tour. And yes, I'm glad to be entertaining and educating you guys tonight. It was super cool meeting you guys. Randy, I'm glad to have met you personally, and I'm super stoked to hear that. As I recall, Randy got that outstanding Hex book when Gabriel won. There was like a little raffle thing that we were doing over there at the event, and if I recall correctly, Gabriel won the raffle, and he decided to go and select one of the Hex books, and he gifted it to Randy. So Randy got an outstanding onboarding time. He literally got onboarded at like the coolest moment when we're doing all of the like, hey, talking about Hex, talking about Pulse Chain, talking about what goes on in real DeFi, like just a whole bunch of people meeting up all at once in real life, as opposed to most people get onboarded via some sort of online means or something like that. He actually got to like reach out and shake hands and meet super cool people. So shout out to Gabriel. Gabriel does a ton of work behind the scenes, by the way. If you guys get the chance to go meet Gabriel over in Kansas City, super cool guy, super awesome, super kind, and one of the best people out there in the DeFi space. So super glad to have you guys on with us tonight, and we are glad that you are watching live from New York.
For sure. To give the boys here even a little more shine, I had the pleasure of having a amazing steak dinner with them the night before any of the Pulse Chain Tour stuff or Richard Hartcase stuff was going on. I think these guys were actually the two of them that set up the entire outing, and then it was fantastic. That was genuinely like the best steak I've ever had. I think I had like a dry aged 20-ounce ribeye. My God, it was immaculate. It was,
dude. That was on the 30th, right? That was the
yes.
night before the hearing. Yeah, I saw the pictures from your guys' outing, man. That looked like a ton of fun. Shout out to Gabriel and Randy for putting that on, man. You guys are
and by the way,
absolutely fantastic.
Gabriel gave a very excellent open mic performance for the Pulse Chain Tour himself, so he's a wonderful speaker now as well. So yeah, I believe it's on his Twitter. So
I'm going to drop the link for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find a link for the folks. And Gabriel, if you want to drop your Twitter in the chat, we'll try to make sure it doesn't get blocked or anything. But yeah, other than that, we have another good friend of ours, Hexican Lost in Asia, says Sup Hexico. No, sir. It's not Sup Hexico. It's Hexico is up right now. Because I think we are right now. And I think we have same sentiment from our other friend, Beyond All. He says, Sup, Degens. You guys were fantastic in the New York City events after the court SEC sucks day. Hope your hopes are sky high from the event and Hexican Pulsing gatherings. Agreed. Sentiment is very high right now, and I think it's for good reason. The case went very well. The hearing, the oral arguments went very well. The gathering and the conference as well also went fantastic. There might have been a few technical issues, but that's what you can expect from these things. But at the same time, though, absolutely fantastic event, and we're getting ready for the next one, which is crazy to think, but it's now 5 months away because it's going to be in March. But other than that, I'm very much looking forward to it myself. I think it might be 4 months away. We got November, December, January, February, beginning of March. So ish. There we go. And then after that, we got one more. We got Jonathan saying, "Hi, boys. Degen Roundtable keeps making me money. I just bought a new car today. Good sir, we have not made you any money. You have made that money yourself. If our information or the information we share with you has been beneficial, I'm glad to hear it. But at the same time, nothing you hear is financial advice or legal advice for that matter. But at the same time, very, very happy to hear you are celebrating and having some good new stuff. It's fantastic." One more from Gabriel. This is great stakes and great conversations. Loved the evening deep DeFi discussions with Bill, Zenith, and all. Very great conversations exploring the DeFi future and current world. Agreed. We, that first night, we finished up dinner. We got kicked out of the steakhouse because we were just chatting for too long. They were like, "Guys, we'd like to close." So it's like, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So we're like, "All right, yeah, sure. We'll go to a bar nearby for one more drink." We shut down that bar too. They literally kicked us out, and we were the last ones there. And it was like a group of us. I'm pretty sure Gabriel was one of them. It was a group of us, and we're sitting there just like having a very deep and heated back and forth about DeFi and the crypto markets and everything going on. And then the two bartenders were like, "Guys, we're closing. It's 2 a.m.
Get the fuck out. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Exactly. There you go. Will's got you hooked up, Gabriel. Go check out the open mic that he did. If you also go find the Pulse Chain Tour open mic segment itself, you will also see the impromptu slam poetry that I did as well. So that's a bit of a treat for folks. Right. For sure.
I forgot that you did that. Yeah.
Right. The bartender, the only correction I have is that the bartender said he wanted to be a Hexican. He heard about Hex back in 2021, didn't buy any. Sucks to be him, but I think we might have convinced him.
What a pity. What a pity. If that didn't convince him, I don't know what would.
For sure.
That's so funny.
All right, we are on to the good stuff now. We have procrastinated, dragged it out, buried the lead, if you will. But now it's time to finally talk about the good stuff. And to lead us off, we actually made news a little bit across the crypto sphere. So I have from Shib Daily on YouTube, Crypto Showdown, Richard Hart fights back against SEC suit. So
well.
Here we go. Let me know if you do not get the volume, but I think I have it as set up correctly. Onwards.
This is the latest from the Shib Daily crypto entrepreneur. Richard Hart is facing off against the SEC in a high-profile legal battle. The core of the dispute revolves around the SEC's jurisdiction over Hart's projects, Hex, Pulse Chain, and PulseX, which operate outside traditional financial systems. Hart's legal team argues that the SEC lacks jurisdiction and that his disclaimers sufficiently address any potential fraud allegations. The outcome of this case could have major implications for the future of crypto regulation in the U.S. For more on Thin's story and other exclusive insights, visit news.shib.io.
There you go. A very
nice.
Very brief synopsis from our definitely not AI-generated person there. So
he was so real.
Thank you to Shib Daily and everyone else for covering it online. But yeah, we actually packed a courtroom and made enough noise online to get covered by some folks. All right.
That was
Well,
I've got some notes.
Yeah. Let's take it from the top, though. I want you to break it down for me. So we went to see oral arguments between the SEC and Richard Hart's legal team. We spent an hour and a half in the courtroom, but inside of that hour and a half, what were the major points that they argued about? Because this really was time for the judge to ask questions between the different counsels and to reconcile any issues or questions that she needed to get answered before she could make a ruling on the request for the motion to dismiss by the Richard Hart team. So what were they arguing about in the courtroom?
So the only things that they were really concerned with was the personal jurisdiction for Richard Hart, and also, I've totally forgot. What was the other one?
It was the fraud claim.
It was the fraud claim. Yeah, they didn't go a whole lot into the Howey test. They tried making the Howey test arguments, and then they were shut down because it's we're not here to determine whether something passed the Howey test or not. It's we're here to determine if these guys can even allege that things are happening correctly. So that was the two things that they argued. They ignored everything else that was in their original complaint that they had filed against the SEC. There was actually a very funny point in there where the judge was like, "Hey, are you guys abandoning the alter ego claim that Richard Hart is this contract stuff?" She had to ask him 3 fucking times before she finally got an answer from the SEC. They were just super dodgy in the way that they answered all the questions, and playing the little word salad games and the dancing around and the reframing whenever she asked questions. This is something that happened a lot, and you guys will get to hear this when we do our reenactment with the transcript and everything. But the two major points that they focused on were personal jurisdiction. Is Richard Hart does he fall under the jurisdiction of the United States? Which, as far as I'm concerned, they didn't make a very good case of it all. And then also the fraud allegations, which I don't think was terribly great on the side of the SEC. And the whole point is they're supposed to allege these things very thoroughly and very factually in order for this case to move forward. And in my opinion, it didn't go very well. But there's always room for interpretation. And I'm no legal analyst. Nuclear Herb said that he could see it being written either way. But as far as the vibes of the room was going, I thought it was very heavily in favor of the Richard Hart case. But those vibe checks are often wrong. So we'll see how this motion to dismiss goes. But that was the general the general presentation of the facts in the courtroom that day. They only stuck to the 2 out of, what was it, Zenith? It was 4. They had 4 original. I can't recall from when we had read those things, but I think that there was 4, and they only focused on the 2 of them.
So there were the 5 initial arguments made by Richard Hart's legal team in all the briefs that you and I read previously. We really only covered personal jurisdiction and then the securities fraud. They touched a little bit on investment contract, but that, again, was not really argued because, like you mentioned earlier, the point of this hearing is not to argue about the facts and whether they're correct or wrong or whatever it is. The point of the hearing is to look at the motion to dismiss, because the motion to dismiss, this is pre-trial anything. So what it's doing is it's trying to look at what the SEC is bringing to the table and determining if there is enough enough meat on the bone, if you will, to go forward with the allegations in the court of law, or to determine if this is kind of just a waste of time. There's nothing really here. So there's that. And then the other specific part that they really focused on was the timeline for all the stuff that the SEC was alleging. Because what the SEC was alleging through the jurisdiction and the fraud arguments was the idea that if you look at what they like to call, quote unquote, the totality of the circumstances, the SEC was arguing that the actions Richard Hart taken had led things to give jurisdiction to the SEC to pursue it and to give enough rope to hang himself with, theoretically, for securities fraud. So specifically with the personal jurisdiction, they started off with this one because it's the one that matters the most. If you can't claim jurisdiction, you can't claim to pursue him for anything else because you don't have jurisdiction. So with this one, what they were arguing is that Brooklyn, the SEC had found one guy in Brooklyn who had done the sacrifice for Pulse Chain and PulseX and had purchased Hex before, and because of that, the SEC has jurisdiction to pursue Richard Hart, even though Richard Hart's team made the argument that they are appealing to the globe, not specifically the United States, but to the globe at large, and that the blockchain doesn't exist in the United States or anywhere for that matter, so the SEC really doesn't have jurisdiction over it. But what the SEC was doing was trying to claim that because they found the person in Brooklyn who had been involved in the products, and the fact that Richard Hart had appeared at a Hex conference, had been invited to the Hex conference to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award, and then also just give 2 hours of remarks, that constitutes enough of a nexus for the SEC to pursue action against Richard Hart in the United States. So very specifically, the issues with these arguments is that the timeline was jacked up, which is that if you're arguing that it was an illegal offering of a security or investment contract, that it means that any sort of targeting towards the United States should have been done during the times of the offering. The unfortunate part is that, well, for the SEC it is that when Richard Hart appeared at the Hex conference, it was well past the offering periods for Hex, PulseX, or PulseChain, which means that it's kind of immaterial because he's talking after the fact, after anyone could have made a decision to get in or out, or rather just in or stay out. So at that point, it's immaterial, which is that he is unable to influence the choices that people made in the past with that present statement.
I'm actually, I've got a screen share that I'm going to pull up here shortly, provided that my my computer is working functionally. I can see on my side that it looks like my backup computer is dropping out, but I've actually got the alleged timeline in the let me see, where's my present button? There it is. I've got the timeline that the SEC made a poster of, and we actually every one of us that that attended this hearing, we all signed the back of it. Of
the
timeline
Richard Hart was created by Richard Hart's legal team, not the SEC. There you go.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. So the SEC alleged a different timeline than the stuff that actually happened, and Richard Hart's lawyers created a cardboard printout and put it on a nice big ol' like easel, and it was like a thing like this freaking big, and they put it on the easel, and it was so funny when I was watching him set it up. They set it up to be like the way the courtroom is set up is like, if you imagine that my head is the judge, there's a line of the SEC lawyers right here, and there's a line of the Richard Hart lawyers right here. The way that they set it up is they put it just like catty corner, or just like in the correct perspective that none of the SEC lawyers seated over here could see what was on the piece of paper that was pointed towards the judge. And so that was super funny to me that like you could see all the SEC lawyers like get in their chairs and like try and lean over to look at this thing that they were displaying for the judge. And they actually because the SEC lawyers they had a copy from the Richard Hart team, but I guess that they only had one and they didn't make copies of it or whatever. And so they're like, oh, can we get extra copies of that or whatever? So the Richard Hart team like walked over a bunch of sheets of paper and handed it over to the SEC lawyers. But it's just funny to watch this little like, nonverbal power dynamic and stuff going on in the actual courtrooms and things. So I'm pulling up my share screen now, which I totally forgot to do as I was talking about my stuff here. But there is my media viewer. I don't know if you can see that, Mr. Zenith.
Niet. I have nothing on my side yet. For the folks at home as well, if anybody was paying attention to what was going on YouTube and Twitter around the time, you'll probably remember.
My computer's backstage right now. So it might not. Oh, browser can't access my screen. Try capturing a different screen and seeing if that. Why is it not present? Oh, okay. Hang on. StreamYard is being funky. Continue with what you were saying. I'm gonna try again.
I was gonna say, let's just keep it going. I don't know if the showing the picture of the timeline is relevant, but
sure.
Yeah. All right. So we got that, and then real quick for the folks at home, if you are curious to hear what other case law is being referenced, you can go look into the actual the files that Richard Hart's legal team put forward in their motion to dismiss. There's a big old list of case law in there, but there are two very important ones. First off is the case of Morrison versus National Australia Bank. And the other one is actually still being adjudicated as we speak right now, and that is Williams versus Binance. So what those two cases are about is the jurisdiction issue, which is like, how do you know when the U.S. actually has jurisdiction over certain things? With the Williams versus Binance case, that was recently appealed and was granted the ability to have jurisdiction because Binance had servers based in the United States. And then with the Morrison versus National Australia Bank, the issue was that they claimed that the offering was listed on the U.S. exchanges, even though it is an Australian company and it was purchased by Australian people. The issue with the case that we have here is the fact that this was provided by Richard Hart, who's a resident of Finland, and nothing is physically housed in the United States. The only tie that they have to the United States is anyone in the U.S. who purchased it. But at the same time, they also showed that there were many, many other people in the world that purchased it from foreign countries. In fact, there were even many of the people from those foreign countries that showed up to the courtroom itself as investors in Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX. So what the SEC is arguing is that this was specifically directed at the United States, but Richard Hart's legal team actually did a pretty good job of showing that no, this was not directed at the United States. There's no physical infrastructure in the United States, and anything that Richard Hart did in the United States had nothing to do with the alleged offerings at the correct times. So that's the the case that they laid out for personal jurisdiction, and why the SEC doesn't really have it. Will, anything I'm missing on that one?
I think you covered that pretty well. I've got nothing to add. What did you have next that you wanted to cover with the trial and things?
Well, up next we have to talk about the fraud allegations, or rather, there's two parts to it, which is part one is, do the disclaimers work? Do the disclaimers matter? These are probably the now famous disclaimers that Richard Hart made on pretty much all of his streams, or any time you looked at one of the websites or anything associated with any of the products that he makes, Hex, PulseChain, PulseX, which says that I am not doing work for you, do not expect financial gain from the work of others, and that if you're participating in the sacrifice phases, you're sacrificing for freedom of speech, freedom of movement, and all of your funds are gone. Like, gone, you do not have them anymore, they are no longer yours. So is that disclaimer accurate or not? What we saw in the courtroom was that the SEC kind of just straight up doesn't believe it, which is that they believe that Richard Hart made this as some sort of smokescreen attempt to get the monkey off his back by just saying magic words instead of actually alleviating himself of any actual duty that he has. So what they're trying to allege is that because the disclaimers don't matter, what this really is just investors giving money to someone who they are hoping to invest in, as opposed to what Richard Hart proposed the entire thing was for, which is that it is a sacrifice for a political movement or political speech. And then only afterwards, as a result, were some people rewarded by a benevolent benefactor, aka the PulseChain, PulseX sacrifice folks. And because it actually, this is the SEC's argument, remember, because this is more akin to an investor-investee relationship, what that means is that Richard Hart had a fiduciary duty to tell the people who gave him investment funds what he was doing with them, and to use those investment funds for the specified purpose of the claimed specified purpose by the SEC, which was to create PulseChain and PulseX and release the product. So what they used for this one is they used a stream from October of 2023, I believe, or 2020. I think it was October 2022, actually.
Yeah.
I believe so. In this stream, Richard Hart talks about, oh, thank you so much for sacrificing for freedom of speech and freedom of movement. By the way, lucky you, I think there's a very rich person out there who would like to give you a free airdrop of a token that is worthless. But what they really focus on here is trying to be like, oh, this is very tongue-in-cheek in a way to just purely evade their wordsmithing, as opposed to actually doing this for the purposes that he's stating.
And one of the excellent things that the Richard Hart lawyers had brought up is that the SEC was believing Richard Hart's words when it was convenient for them, and disbelieving his words and other things when it was inconvenient for their case. And so it's like, are they going to listen to what Richard Hart says when it's in line with the things that they want to prove, and not listen to what he says at other times, like when he says, like, hey, you guys should not expect any output from the efforts of others, or expectation of profits from the efforts of others, but like, you should totally like take this other thing that I'm saying super seriously as an expectation of work from the profits of others. They were making the case that, like, hey, we don't believe him when he says X, Y, and Z, but we do believe him when he says 1, 2, and 3. And so ignore when he talks about this thing and only listen when he talks about this thing. And like, in both of those circumstances, it's in favor of the thing that we're trying to argue as we sue him in our complaint. So it was just it was very weak argument from my perspective. And that's one of the things that the Richard Hart lawyers did a very good job of pointing out. It's like, look, you guys can't be saying, listen to him for this stuff, don't listen to him for this other stuff. You know, there was a very well made point that I think needs to be brought up as we discuss this.
Exactly. So again, this goes back to the SEC's arguments, which is that the disclaimers do not alleviate him of having a fiduciary obligation to the quote unquote investors about what he's doing with their funds and how so. The other half of this comes down to the SEC was alleging that a lot of the stuff that Richard did with the money, now that he had it in his possession, also constitutes the rest of the fraud, which is that, one, Richard Hart put the money through Mixer protocols and then separated it into other wallets before reconglomerating it into other wallets. They believe that this was a deceptive act as part of the fraud, which is that just using the Mixer is inherently deceptive. And then additionally, they believe that he used this money to buy supercars, the world's largest black diamond, that kind of stuff. So because he used the funds for things other than developing Pulse Chain, they allege that that is fraud. Also, he was trying to obfuscate it through mistrust or untrustworthy means, aka mixers, and that is the other half of the fraud going on here. The argument from Richard Hart's legal team is the disclaimers are legit. All the money that was sacrificed, it was sacrificed. It is gone. It is no longer theirs. It is not specified for any singular purpose. It has been destroyed and given to a specific wallet that is now free to do with it whatever it wants. As a result of that, if that is truly the case, then that means that that money is not earmarked for Pulse Chain, PulseX development, or anything, and that whoever has that money at that point is free to use it however they like. Therefore, based on the disclaimers, it does not create an investment contract. No one has expectation of profit or work from the work that Richard Hart or any developers were going to be doing, and the money that is in that wallet is now able to be freely spent on whoever controls by whoever controls it on whatever they want. So that's the two opposing arguments on this one. And it really comes down to whether the disclaimers are believable or not. And in my personal opinion, I do think they are, because they were made in very plain English many, many times, and they were made with what I believe to be seriousness, which is that Richard Hart genuinely meant every word of what he said when he said, this money is sacrificed for freedom of speech and freedom of movement. You are sacrificing money for a political speech or political cause. And as a result, it is not tied to Pulse Chain and PulseX. And that's really the base of it. It's the idea that, do you have the ability to sacrifice your money for political speech? And that as a result, are you able to receive money as a pledge of political speech as well? That's the crux of that argument for me.
And there was an interesting point in there too that Judge Carroll had mentioned, and she was talking to SEC lawyers when she said this, and she was like, so what, even if he did spend the money on stuff, so what, and I like that was like that. I think that threw off the Richard Hart lawyers as well, is because like, I don't think they expected her to say that, like, so what if he spent the money? So what, like, there's no way to prove that this is the money that's from the sacrifices or something along those lines. But even if there was, like, who cares if he goes and buys watches, or if he trims some off the top for taking care of himself. This is not my words. This is Judge Carroll's words. And she didn't seem fazed by the notion that like he bought a diamond or that he did some other shit at all. She was like, who cares if he did that? Why is that relevant to this case? And so like the SEC lawyers, like there was like a moment in the room where it was like, wait, what? And then the Richard Hart lawyers like looked funny too. But it was really interesting to hear that like the judge say like, yeah, I don't care about any of that. Like, that's not relevant to the stuff that we're talking about, So that was that was a super cool moment as well.
I think it was an important moment too, because it kind of shows where the judge's head is at. Because if she's asking questions that she thinks are relevant, because otherwise she's wasting her own time. It's not performative. It's actually designed to get to the bottom of the issues at hand. So if the issue at hand for her is, what does it matter what that money is spent on? The implication there is that money is not earmarked for whatever purpose the SEC claims it is, but rather that money is actually just Richard Hart's money or whoever the wallet belongs to. It's just there. True. Alrighty, so let's cover some of the other oddities of the case, shall we say. So you mentioned it earlier, but right from the get-go, the SEC was very, very eager to talk about the Howey test and talk about how they believe this thing fits into the Howey test. But if you recall, towards the beginning of our discussion, the purpose of the hearing was not to discuss the facts as to whether or not they were true or untrue, but as to whether or not they're relevant. So why was the SEC so eager to try and walk through the Howey test and claim that their interpretation of it is correct?
Mm-hmm. Oh, why? Because that was a big part of their whole argument, is they wanted to allege that Howey had been met, and that was relevant in determining that like all of these alleged Hex, PulseX, and Pulse Chain were all securities offerings. And realistically, none of that stuff is relevant until like they do a good job of alleging that is even relevant at all. So they were trying to prove the thing that they were alleging, right? Rather than like justify the reason for alleging it in the first place. They never even got to that point, and they started like jumping the gun, essentially. Is that what you're asking?
Yep, that is exactly what I was asking. So the reason that I bring this up is because I think that this is one of the examples to show how the SEC, I think, was not doing a great job at proving their case, but just trying to liberally apply the law however they see fit in hopes that the people that they're suing kind of rolls over a little bit, or that the courts kind of grant them favorable leeway in regards to what they're doing. So with regards to the hearing, they were there to argue about the 5 points that Richard Hart's legal team brought up in their motion to dismiss. But instead, the SEC was trying to do other things. So one of the comments that the Richard Hart legal team made to the SEC was it felt like they're trying to amend their complaint in real time, because they'd done multiple things, which is they'd dropped a lot of they entirely dropped the alter ego theory, and were even forced to admit that they did after trying to dodge the question multiple times. And then after that, they tried to dig into the Howey test, even though the Howey test was not argued by Richard Hart's legal team. And if you go read their response, they say, by the way, we have not talked about this, but we are eager to do so, because they have a very different interpretation of it.
Yeah, and then would it be appropriate to talk about them, like the comment they made about amending the complaint in real time?
Yep.
Like the Richard Hart lawyers were like, hey, it seems like the SEC, because they kept bringing up stuff that wasn't in the original complaint, and they kept like changing the stuff. And the whole point of the hearing is to say like, hey, bro, this is the stuff that we allege, or excuse me, hey, judge, your honor, like this is the stuff we allege. And then the other team says, hey, your honor, this is, this, that, or the other thing. Right. This is real. This is not real. And the SEC kept bringing up stuff that was, and you and I, bro, like literally the two of us, we read all of the fucking documents live on stream. Like we read the SEC's complaint. We read the motion to dismiss in response to that. We read the SEC's response to the motion to dismiss, and we read the Richard Hart team's fucking response to the SEC's response. We did that all live on stream. And a lot of the stuff that they talked about in the courtroom that day was not in the original, was not in like that the SEC wanted to talk about in the courtroom that day, was not a part of the original complaint. And so the Richard Hart lawyers, and this is something that Nuclear Herbs had noted very wisely, it's like, hey, this is like the very political and nice way of saying like, bros, what the fuck are you doing? This is not part of the original, like this is not part of the original lawsuit. Like, why are you?
I think the lawyer speak to regular speak interpretation, it was like, hey, SEC, way to not do your homework and show up unprepared. Yeah,
more or less. And it's just like, and the judge wasn't like, she wasn't like entertaining it. And it was super interesting to see like the back and forth between the two legal teams, and the way that they answered the questions from the judge. Like the judge would ask a directed question to the SEC lawyers, and they would dance around the topic. They would drone on and bring up things that like had nothing to do with the judge's question. And then the SEC would ask the Richard Hart team questions, and they would give her like a curt de facto response, and then provide like a whole bunch of background information that backed up their like short and sweet answers. And so it was just very interesting to see the difference in behavior between the two legal teams in respect to the judge's questions and what she had going on.
That's correct. One of the analysis that I made of it was that based on the amount and the line of questioning, anytime the judge was really talking to Richard Hart's legal team, is more asking them to just be like, all right, make the case. They would make the case, and then after that, the judge would pretty much be done. But anytime she dealt with the SEC, it was asking them to clarify or be specific or explain this thing that they brought up previously, or explain why this is over here. But I think part of the reason that Richard Hart's legal team did as well as they did, in my personal opinion, is that it's one of the quotes that they had, which was that, Your Honor, our legal team is citing case law for our arguments, and they are citing general sentiment for theirs. And it's the idea that the Richard Hart legal team really did their homework, and they were very specific and precise. I've been covering this the entire time, which is that I think whenever you read the two sides and how they talk about the allegations, it's that the SEC is doing a very just broad swath, general interpretation, mass appeal to their statutes as the SEC and the laws as it stands. But the Richard Hart legal teams has always been very precise and pointed with their answers and their arguments, which is that they're always pointing to something and they're always pointing it for specific reasons. And a lot of times they can even point to other cases that are different and are able to articulate exactly why they're different and why that line exists. And I think we saw more of the same stuff here, because we mentioned the one guy in Brooklyn theory, and Richard Hart's team even brought up the fact that there have been previous case law, which is that just because one guy purchased a thing here does not grant like blanket jurisdiction to go after the underlying thing itself. And it's like, oh, wow, that seems highly relevant to this one.
Yeah, like imagine one person in the world purchases something made in a foreign country. It's like, oh, now the U.S. has jurisdiction over all of that place's products and all of that place's stuff. It was very it was a very interesting argument. There was a point where the SEC legal team was like, well, I mean, we think that it's more. So they alleged that there was like 10 people that had bought Richard Hart stuff in America, and like for the folks at home that don't understand, there's like they have to prove that there were transactions happening in America, starting in America, being processed in America, and like ending in America. And on like blockchain,
that would be what we call the domestic purchases of an offering or security, and that was the second argument, if you remember from the documents we read. That wasn't argued a ton here, but this is exactly what you're alluding to.
Well, and so as soon as they had mentioned that there were 10 people that had like done these things in America, the judge said, "Where is the blockchain?" And that was such a fucking funny question, bro, because the SEC lawyers were like, and it's like, yeah, the blockchain is everywhere. There's validators all over. You shut down every single computer in the world except for one that's, a validator. Then like that's like the blockchain will exist. And then you open up any computer later, like anywhere else, and the blockchain still exists. The blockchain is global. It does not belong to America. It does not belong to Finland. It does not belong to China. It doesn't belong to Yugoslavia. The blockchain is everywhere. And so when the SEC lawyers were talking about like, hey, there's like 10 people in America that bought this thing or whatever, and the judge was like, okay, well, where's the blockchain? Where did the transaction settle? And it was so fucking funny to watch them like be flabbergasted. There was a lot of points where I just felt like busting out laughing during the whole hearing, and it just like it's like we gotta behave well, we gotta look good.
It wasn't just you. I will say, at large, the Hexskins behaved admirably. No one was booing or cheering or jeering and sneering. It was everyone was there as standing on business, as the kids say, and everyone's like professional. And the only like kind of like funny points to me personally was the points that happened in the court were not funny. But the funny part for me was listening to all of us in the back trying to choke back our own laughter, like you're a bunch of school kids like misbehaving in class, trying not to get caught by the substitute teacher. It was that kind of thing, which is like there were some genuinely funny lines that were dropped. Like when the Richard Hart legal team made a comment about like usually hearings like this is we're trying to assess how much meat is on the bone, but in this case we don't even know if there's a bone to begin with.
Yep.
I was like, that was one of them that was good. And then the other one, in relation to the line of questioning you were just talking about, there's two funny things about that one, because one was the judge literally asked the SEC, where does the blockchain exist? And then they gave like some half-assed answer about like, oh yeah, it's made up of like all the wallets. And she's like, where do the wallets exist? And then they give another half-assed example again, and she just doubles down and goes, no. Where are the wallets? And it was very clear that the SEC just did not want to answer. Because the correct answer is they exist online. They exist digitally purely. Yep. They're not physical. They could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be in the United States. But then the other half of this line of questioning was, at the end of it, it kind of came back to the idea that, like, okay, well, you're failing to prove domestic transactions. Like, I don't even know. Like, we can't really even prove who has even purchased these products. And then the SEC, like, kind of out of breath at this point was like, well, why don't we just ask all the people in the back for a show of hands if they've purchased this stuff? The guy in his mind was thinking, oh, these are probably all a bunch of Americans. But the point of everyone showing up to this hearing was that they specifically went and got a bunch of people from other countries to show up who purchased it. So the courtroom was packed with foreigners who had purchased the products, not necessarily Americans. And the judge was like, no, that will not be necessary.
Yep. It was so funny. It was excellent.
It was
what other talking points do you have? Because I've got a bunch of just like random things that Nuclear Herb said during his analysis the next day.
We can cover those, but real quick, one thing that so we covered a handful of the arguments that were made during the written arguments, but now we're in the oral arguments. So we had personal jurisdiction. We had a good chunk of domestic purchase of offerings and securities. We spent a good chunk of time on securities fraud as well. We touched a little bit on investment contract, which is that the Richard Hart's legal team was alleging that like this is not an investment contract because, I mean, honestly, if you go by contract strict definition, there's no physical contract involved here. In fact, these are just smart contracts, which are allegedly different, they were arguing. But the SEC, again, is trying to kind of carte blanche their argument and be like, no, it all falls under a jurisdiction. It's all the same. So we had a little bit of that. But again, we're not here to argue facts. We're here to argue kind of like facts in support of the allegations, not whether or not they're true. But then the last one is I want to talk about which was not talked about, which was the First Amendment argument. This was argued in the Richard Hart motion to dismiss as First Amendment violations for not just Richard Hart, but anybody who uses the blockchain. And then infamously, we got the SEC response, which talked about like, oh no, your argument for the First Amendment protection is to be like, oh no, they saw me robbing a bank on a security camera. That must be protected. It's like, first off, greatly disagree with their argument there. But the interesting thing for me was that they actually abandoned that argument and used a different one in court, which is the one that you mentioned earlier, which is that they meant it's the idea that the SEC was kind of cherry picking Richard Hart's statements, which is that they'll listen to a full like 5-minute disclaimer and then cherry pick like half a sentence said like a little bit after that is be like, aha, it's clearly different and contradicting everything else. But Richard Hart's legal team was saying like, no, you're actually like picking and choosing. But the SEC's response to that was, no, we're just pointing out contradictions. And it's like, are you pointing out contradictions, or are you going to try to use that original argument from your written statement, which was that anything said is not protected speech, especially like the claiming that you can't record me robbing a bank, that kind of thing. It's like, no, you've switched up your argument. And then again, it's like, it's just more along the lines of the SEC kind of just trying to shift and move however they need to, as opposed to sticking to the original thing that they alleged.
I wonder if like the SEC, and this is one of the things that Chuck brought up as well, Nuclear Herbs, is like the SEC is used to bullying people. But like for the most part, people get a lot of fines, people get a lot of what's it called? Not supplications, settlements. People get a lot of fines. People get a lot of settlements. The SEC drags out stuff in court because they're backed by the U.S. taxpayer, whereas like the people on the opposition side are backed by however much money they have, and the SEC just drags things out, makes things take a long time. It just kind of like wastes all of the resources of the defendant, and like so they're probably I would this is speculation here, so like take it with a grain of salt. But if they're used to doing this type of litigation of just making things last long, making things a mess, making things muddy, having companies have to buy like expensive lawyers and do all sorts of craziness, most of the companies that the SEC deals with, they just like pay the fine and they move on. So I don't think that they have a lot of, it's like, is a bully really good at fighting? Right? Is a bully really good at MMA or boxing or something like that? And the SEC stepped into the ring with the big boys here with the Richard Hart lawyer team, which is what is it? Emmanuel. Oh crap! I can't think of the name of the Zenith. What's the name of the lawyer team?
I don't remember any of the lawyers. I'll be honest.
No. But they're part of like the killer lawyer team, like in America that like nobody wants to face off.
Specifics on the names.
Yeah, I'll have to.
Sorry, guys.
I'll have to ask Nuclear Herbs about that, because he said many times that like these are the guys that no one else fucks with. That know it, like when you see these guys up on the opposite side of the bench, like that you're in for some trouble here. And the SEC they put together just a really sloppy case. They made a whole bunch of silly goose arguments that were relatively easy to refute. And like I say this all like as a backseat driver. It's probably quite difficult for the Richard Hart, like for lawyers to go and find all this stuff and to do all this legwork and to understand all these things and to make these arguments in front of the court. Like this is probably costing Richard a boatload of money, or whoever this is probably costing the Hex blockchain, since that's who the defendant is. It's probably costing the smart contract a lot of money.
Richard Hart.
Yeah, there is no Hex blockchain.
I think
it was
that is
super
an important point for this one, which is that it's also a point that pisses off the SEC, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is that you can tell we covered it when we read the briefings, which is that the SEC is mad that they found someone who claims to have enough money to fight the SEC. And that really irks them because I think this case it's an outlier from the rest because the SEC up until this point has relied on either kind of like using old law to get their result for kind of claiming everything's a security, or for the smaller people specifically, just hoping that the threat of an SEC lawsuit going to fruition is going to cost them enough time and money that it's not worth it to fight it, so they'll settle instead. But in this case, they found Richard Hart, who has been independently wealthy for a long time, and his current goal in life is to claim as much glory as possible. So the SEC was like, yes, another person to roll over. And Richard Hart said, yes, another scalp to collect for my collection.
Well, and like there was that other company that we had covered that basically like made the SEC dissolve itself over in Salt Lake City or like in Utah somewhere, where they had lost
that is the
so bad.
Case.
The debt box case, where they lost a ton of money and they ended up winning. And like the oh shoot, where was I going with this?
Let me help you with this one. So that case in particular was an example of SEC overreach and misuse of authority and just blatantly lying in legal processes to the point that
they were bullying. They were not doing.
It's not even bullying. They were just straight up cheating. They were straight up misrepresenting and lying about evidence that they claimed to have in order to freeze funds of Americans as they claimed as foreign investors for nefarious purposes. But instead, they just froze a bunch of American investors' money moving around internally, claiming it could have been used for like terrorism internationally or something stupid. It was so ridiculous. And the other issue is that they doubled down on their lie when specifically asked about it by the judge. And because their actions were so egregious, those agents actually got fired. And the entire SEC branch in that area had to shut down. If you go read Nuclear Herb's lawyer to regular speech translation on this one, the judge literally talks about how you have burned decades worth of goodwill in an instant, and now you just can't get it back. So now I can no longer treat you people as good faith actors, and I'm going to have to scrutinize you even more. And it was, the branch shut down, people got fired, heads got rolled, and the SEC even had to pay money in the case, which is very rare, considering that they were the ones that were prosecuting. It was just so egregious that they owed damages.
And it's like, what's terrible is no matter what happens, the U.S. taxpayer loses when the SEC is doing things that is not good, because they're wasting taxpayer dollars in like going through the process, doing the legal fees and doing all that other such stuff. And they lose taxpayer dollars when they have to pay back the people that they stole money from to begin with, or that they caused to lose money. So it's like either way the taxpayer is losing. The only way that the taxpayer wins is if the SEC is doing benevolent stuff and they get a company that's doing evil things to stop doing that. So it's like, and even then it's only like protecting future investors. It's not actually like well, maybe they force settlements and people to get paid back and all sorts of other things. But in the debt box case, like there was a lot of opportunity cost that came as a result of all of the folks that were involved in it and all of the people whose assets were frozen by the U.S. government. Like it was just a big fucking nightmare, man. And the debt box guys, they lost reputation, they lost time, they lost money, they lost a whole bunch of things simply because and as a result of the lies that the SEC was telling. And this is just part of like the whole idea of government needs checks and balances. There needs to be honesty. There needs to be scrutiny. There needs to be like who watches the watchman kind of perspective and things. So I don't want to get too far away from the Richard Hart case, but that was my thoughts on like, just the SEC doesn't have a track record of good stuff going on when it comes to cryptocurrency, or rather they might have a whole bunch of good things that they have done, but they've also done a whole bunch of atrocious shit as well. And like we would prefer that they not do the atrocious stuff. And perhaps I should give them a couple breaks here and there, because I'm sure that they've stopped some terrible scams or something, right? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know what they are, if there is anything, but I'm sure that they did some things that are nice, but they need to stop doing all this bullshit crap. And that's all that I got on that.
Agreed. That's about all that I got as well. why don't we go ahead and go to the favorite segment, if you don't mind?
Yes, I will go ahead and put up the sign, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels. It's time for chat motherfucking shoutouts, the best part of the show. Mr. Zenith, it looks like we've got a lot of stuff going on in the chats. We've got 8-starred commentarinos. So if you'd be so kind as to pull up the first one for me, it looks like we've got none other than Mr. Funkmaster Hex saying, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening to you too, sir. I will take a drink of this. Soleil sparkling water, blood orange flavored. This episode is not brought to you by Soleil, but Soleil's pretty great, good stuff, and I like drinking it. So shout out to you, Mr. Funkmaster Hex.
True. Up next, we got Tin Top saying, what's up, Hexicans, with the peace sign as always. Good to see you, man.
Yep. Good stuff. Next, we have Kay Hudson saying, appears. SJ said I could use it with a little smiley face.
If SJ said so, that's
yep.
Good
If
enough for
SJ
me.
said so. Then a wild K Hudson appears, or just a regular K Hudson appears. Next up, we got Tam Tam saying, I appreciate how thorough you guys are. Damn, y'all are awesome. Just you wait, Tam Tam. I'm going to buy that transcript, and we're going to read it for you here on the Degen Roundtable. So should be a couple $100 or something like that. It'll be a great time.
Preview. There's a YouTube channel that does a similar thing with Supreme Court transcripts, but instead what they do is they have a handful of dogs that they've dressed up as justices, and there's like someone who has like behind them and like does the hand fluctuations, except it's the actual voice record. You can get voice recordings of the Supreme Court, but you can't get the video. So they use dogs in their place with like little wigs to reenact it.
Oh my God, bro. That's brilliant.
I'm not going to say we're going to do the same thing, but it might be an even lower budget production of that. But it will still be hilarious.
I guarantee you it'll be low budget. The most expensive thing is just buying the damn transcript. So I might get a wig or two, and I don't know. We'll see what we got going on, but it's going to be a good time. So just you wait, Tam. Just you wait, audience. You guys are going to get some good content from the Degen Roundtable. We're the only guys that read the SEC hearing live for y'all to listen to on audio, and we're going to be the only guys to read you the actual transcript of what happened in court, unless someone beats me to it, which I doubt they're going to do. But
we'll just call it Will and Z do Shakespeare in the Park.
Oh my God, it'll be fucking awesome, bro. I'm so stoked. Next up, we've got Pulse Jitsu with Fast Abdul. Shout out to Fast Abdul, the fastest camel trader in the West, saying America, but Will appears to be from Mexico today. They can prove nothing. You're absolutely right. This is my Mexico drug rug. I actually believe this was a gift from my good Irish friend, Paul Cannon. So Paul, if you're out there watching, an old Marine Corps friend of mine, he was a machine gunner from moved to America from Ireland. But Paul, if you happen to be watching, broski, thank you for this excellent Baja jacket. Still thinking about you, amigo. I might see about visiting you here in the near future. But yeah, shout out to Fast Abdul. And then we've got Dr. H, the crypto practor. Hey fuckers, what's up? What's up to you too, good sir? Glad to see you. Welcome. For those of you guys that don't know, Dr. H, the crypto practor, he's got a show about Monte Carlo or bust. He talked about the richest man in Babylon. He's just an up and coming new streaming fellow here to help us all pump our bags and talk about Hex and DeFi and everything. And then finally, we've got Yellowtail. Blockchain is like the Matrix. It's everywhere in the internet with a computer. That is correct. It exists everywhere. Any computer can have the blockchain. It does not belong to the US. It does not belong to China. It doesn't belong to, my pet cat. It belongs to everyone. So this is super awesome. And yeah, man, I'm super stoked to see where things go. Is it time for us to wrap up the show though, Mr. Zenith?
Almost. We got
one more another one
sneaking in. Crypto Compassion.
Well, aloha, Mr. Crypto Compassion. Good to see you, amigo. This is going to be excellent.
There you go. And Dr. H is one more. He says, shout out palm trees. I'm in Florida on hold.
Ah, excellent. Yes, of course you're down in Florida. That's a wonderful place this time of year. I love to hear it. Love to hear it. Absolutely.
True. Alrighty. That is all we got for the show this evening, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Will, who are you? Where can the folks find you, and what do you have going on in the near future?
The folks can find me at will.pls.fyi. That is where all of my goodies and gumdrops can be found. I'm trying to find my links and resources right here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, shenanigans. Well, Oh, never mind. It's in my copywriting folder. So you guys can find me at will.pls.fyi. That's where all of my socials are linked from. So I'm going to hit the copy text button, and then I've got 2 laptops going on right now. They're both incredibly slow. They're like $100 laptops or whatever. But that's what I'm using for my background show support stuff, and then my phone is doing all the live stuff. But yeah, you guys can find me at will.pls.fyi. All of my socials are linked there. You guys can stalk me on Facebook, stalk me on Instagram, stalk me on Twitter, stalk me on Telegram. Find all of the everything there. All of my link trees are in there. All of the stuff that I've worked on can all be found from that one centralized pulse domain. So that's where all of my stuff is at. As far as stuff going on in the near future, what have I got going on? I'm going to be rolling up to New Hampshire tomorrow. And so anybody that's in between New Hampshire or New Jersey and New Hampshire, I might swing by and say hi if I have time. But like, I really want to get up there quickly. So I think it's an 8-hour trip from where I'm at to where my house is. So I actually, scratch that. I'm not going to be able to swing by and see you because I want to be able to sleep in my bed. So there we go. That's what I got going on in the near future. Rolling up to New Hampshire, and then eventually I might be making my way down to El Salvador to help a wealthy friend of mine work on a compound for a gentleman to focus on self-improvement and things. So that might be happening in the near future, and if not, then I'll go over to Nebraska where I've got my next job site. So anyone that's in between New Hampshire and Nebraska, look to see me traveling and send me a message on Telegram or on Facebook or Instagram or wherever the hell if you want me to link up as I'm traveling the States. I'd love to come see you. Speaking of traveling around and meeting people, if you guys are a Hexican and you want to meet other Hexicans, then what you need to do is you need to go to bit.ly/hex_meetup where you can find, oh snap, I didn't copy that one onto here. Anyways, go to bit.ly/hex_meetup and you can find a whole bunch of other Hexicans and a whole bunch of other places where people are going and talking about cool crypto stuff. So I will go ahead and drop the link in the chat whenever my damn computer catches up with the internet and things. But yeah, that's what I've got going on. We're going to be doing book club next Friday, and I do believe that is the next one yours or is the next one mine, Zenith?
It is mine, good sir. And I was planning on this upcoming Friday, but we can check the schedule real quick.
Oh, yeah, upcoming Friday. Excuse me. Yeah. I forgot that today is Sunday. So, yeah. In 5 days from now, or 6 days from now, we'll be having a book club. So that's what we've got going on there. I think that it's I want to say that it's a book that does not have an electronic version.
That would be correct. I'll jump in here real quick. So this Friday, we're going to be talking about The Great Wave by David Hackett Fisher. Unfortunately, yes, this book does not have an Audible version. It is only a physical or digital like PDF version. So you got to read it with your eyeballs instead of your ear holes. Good news is the book is only a little over 200 pages. I know this looks pretty thick, but I kid you not, half of this is references for like tables, data, matrices, and that stuff. But the arguments portion is only a little over 200 pages. For anybody that is a fan of Rudyard over at the What If Alt His channel, this is one of the books that he talks about nonstop. And he actually just released a video about this book like 2 or 3 days ago. I think it's something about like the coming great wave or something like that. So whatever his most recent video referencing a wave in the title, it's kind of a synopsis of this. So if you don't want to read this book, go check that one out and go check out some of his other content because he does reference it a good bit in a lot of that stuff.
Tell me the name of it again. I'm typing it into the Telegram book club right now.
It is The Great Wave.
The Great Wave.
By
Excellent.
David Hackett Fisher.
The Great
there
Wave.
Are other
book
books called
43.
Stuff, man. Wild stuff.
Dang, dude. We've got 43 book clubs under our belt. By the way, our anniversary for book club was not too long ago. So shout out to you starting the book club, broski. Good idea. That's one of my favorite parts of the Degen Roundtable.
Hey, thanks for showing up every week, my man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, bro. It's a good time.
Absolutely.
So what else do you got going on in the near future, and where can the folks find you, Mr. Z?
Folks, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram over at Zenith DI or in the Telegram chat. The Degen Roundtable Telegram chat. The link to join that is in the description of the YouTube video down below. Other than that, you can probably find the link on the Twitter profile as well. But
I will
what I have
drop it
going on
here.
in the near future is chilling for a little bit, getting back to some regular work, and then I'm going to see if I can try to sneak my way down to Puerto Rico. I hear there's a pretty cool event going on the second week of December called Crypto Week, where it's pretty much a giant pitch fest where people throw crypto projects at venture capitalist investors and see if they want to fund their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. So that is what I got going on. Other than that, I believe we're going to have our usual Whiskey Wednesday this Wednesday. We're going to have book club on Friday. And then after that, we're going to be back again on Sunday for another usual news show. Although I imagine we might have some very important results from a presidential election for that show. Additionally,
Yes.
We're floating around the idea right now internally if we want to do a special for some sort of election thing or some sort of like New York City recap with everyone who went either tomorrow or Tuesday. So let us know. Other than that, you can also catch the Telegram Tuesday call. It's usually Tuesdays around like 1 p.m. or around 3 p.m. Eastern time in our Telegram with Dace and Jay and all the other guys that show up for that one if they cannot make the Sunday show. Yeah, that is what we got going on. Will, any final objections?
I was going to say, we have one final chat shout out. And do you want me to do the closing copywriting so you can click the buttons and things, or do you want to take care of it?
I got it.
Okay, sweet. Our final chat shout out is to Conspiracy Crypto Ramon saying, "What's up, fam? Good to see you, Ramon. Another good IRL friend of mine. And go check out his show. He does some excellent conspiracy videos and talks to some really cool people about really awesome things." That's all that I got. That's all that you've got. I've dropped all the links in the live chat. Follow Zenith at ZenithDI on all the socials. Follow me at will.pls.fyi. Go join the Degen Roundtable Telegram. And if you guys are really interested and you want to check out our book club Telegram, then you can find that at t.me/Degen Book Club. And that will bring you right over there into that one. I will drop that live in the chats right now. And Zenith, go ahead and take us out, good sir.
Will do. Folks, we'll see you guys on Tuesday in the Telegram, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday for Whiskey Wednesday. But until then, we do want to thank you for spending your time here with us, because at the Degen Roundtable, we know that time is your most valuable asset. So every time you spend it here with us, we want to thank you for it each and every time. So thank you very much. And until Tuesday or Wednesday, I hope that everyone out there continues to degen responsibly.